task force. Today, for today's meeting, we will, sorry, I'm trying to move. Sorry, July 29th. Okay, thank you, Tim. Yeah. And here's a quick look at the agenda. Tonight, we'll start off by providing some updates on the work that we've done to address the feedback that you provided at the actual meeting that took place in June 24th. And from there, we will go into just a quick glimpse at some examples of the different types of land use components, placemaking, and character that you all might want to consider. And then also from there, we'll get into a task force discussion. So if there's anything else that you all would like to add or any questions about the specific sites or any feedback you have on the numbers or on the data we'll be providing, you'll have an opportunity to have that discussion. And then the task force chairs will be, as we go through each site, the task force chairs will be building consensus from the task force on either whether the information you say is okay to move forward with in our analysis of the impacts, and then also the transportation study, or if there are any other additional changes that you want us to make before we get into those into the meat of those studies. So then after that, any additional questions or answers, general questions you have, will for staff, we'll be happy to try to answer those as well. So looking at this slide, this is just a reminder of what you've seen before, but it's the recommendations from the consultants for the densities and intensities that I'm sorry, that's not in here. That's not. But this is just a look at the densities and intensities that have been recommended for the core area to achieve the community vision that you all adopted last May 8th of 2023. So it's just give you all an idea of how what we're doing now to address some of the ideas that you all had with the feedback from last month, and how we'll be applying it across the core area to come up with the new numbers that we'll be looking at tonight. So after this, the next steps will be, after the task force gain some consensus tonight on the information you're seeing, the next step would be, again, completion of the land use analysis based on your updates, and completion of the transportation analysis based on your updates. And then we'll come back to the task force for a meeting where you can discuss. We'll be presenting the potential impacts and also any potential mitigations that may be applied to address those impacts. And there'll be more task force discussions on those things for both land use and transportation. And then after that, we will be drafting the proposed text for amending the comprehensive plan, and we'll bring that back to you as well for consensus, to build consensus around the comprehensive plan. And then once we have a consensus, we'll be going through the process of public hearings and taking it to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors for a hopeful adoption. I think we want to be through with the board sometime at the latest first quarter of 2025. So this is the feedback. This is an example of the feedback that we heard from you all, the main points that you all discussed at the last meeting. And there was a request to provide an updated land use assumptions with the following request from the task force. You asked for refined estimates for the untapped development potential of the current comprehensive plan, and we've used that as the you saw the last time there was an approximate number of 2,009 units that were 2,900 units that were untapped under the current comprehensive plan, and we adjusted that number, and it now looks to be approximately 2,300. And what we did is we took all the areas where there is still a current opportunity for someone to come in and redevelop under the current comprehensive plan. There are still a few areas that where there's no development and where development might potentially take place in the future. So we pulled all that out as you requested at the last meeting, and that's how we landed on the 2,300. And you also asked us to modify the recommended plan potential for some of the sites where current floodplain delineations are subject to change based on the work that FEMA's been doing in identifying the new delineations for the floodplain. They haven't been adopted by the county yet, but we still pull those areas out now. And there was also a request after the meeting to consider hotels in the land use mix to be recommended for the core area and possibly for some of the supporting sites. And that's definitely something that we'll be looking at in the land use mix, having that hotel component. The 2,900 was higher for untapped potential. Correct. It won't be part of the new number. That'll be part of the that's part of the number that's currently contemplated under the comprehensive plan for areas that we aren't changing now. So to go from the 2,900 to the 2,300, we pulled out 600 units that could still be done currently under the comprehensive plan with no change to the comprehensive plan.
Those 600 are undeveloped right now.
Those 600 are undeveloped right now, but
I think the goal was
it's undeveloped.
I think the goal was to delineate between undeveloped future treating those as separate categories.
Correct. So
that would help me understand.
Yeah. So the 2,300
we're only two categories.
Right. Right now. But we haven't kind of talked about the future development.
Underdeveloped.
So we have underdeveloped. So you could have built 100, but you built 80.
And it's not likely to change.
So those are underdeveloped, and there's 2,300 potential underdeveloped. Then there's 600 that currently are on land that's not developed at all, that you build out right now by right for 600. And then we can change those, and I guess it's number 3. You got underdeveloped, non-developed, future development.
So the 2820 is really two different numbers at this point.
The 2820 was the recommendation for what needed for the minimum of what you needed from the consultants. The 2,900 was the number. If you looked at the maximum potential, the highest potential that the comprehensive plan currently has, there were 2,900 that haven't been developed yet. Of those 2,900, 600 we think still could be developed under the current comprehensive plan. So we aren't changing anything that would affect the ability to still do those 600 in the future. And those 600 aren't most of those 600 aren't within the core area anyway. So
I think from the last meeting, get to that the 2,800 was on top of the 20. Of those, the 2,300 are already built out. A lot of them recently.
Mm-hmm.
So the chances of those actually somebody tearing down an 80, 8 parcels that have 80 units and that were built 10 years ago and trying to max it out to 100 is probably slim enough. So
correct.
That is difficult to use those missing 2,300 units in the calculations. The 600, however, are on undeveloped land, so you can certainly use those at its current potential. And then the future ones we have yet to decide, but that's where we're trying to determine is. I don't think personally you can consider those 2,300. You can consider the 600, and certainly the consultant was recommending the 2,800 above the 2,900. So you could take that number 6,000 and some and subtract out the 600. And you would figure out approximately how many more units you would.
Can we,
But
for next meeting, can we have like an exact breakdown of what's here right now, what the potential for the conference plan, we're talking about these things, but I'm sorry, I kind of get it, but I don't get it, but I feel like good about what's here right now. What's the potential for development, and then what we're talking about in addition. Anyway, break it down as much as we can.
See if we can break that down for you in this presentation that is prepared for you tonight. You got
Okay.
literally by land units, how we calculated this.
and how we got to the numbers. He's talking about for existing. We already know what existing is, but it's not in this presentation because we're talking about changing. I have the existing number, and I have a spreadsheet that I can go to and tell you that existing number. But because we're talking about the comprehensive plan and the potential of the plan, it's kind of different if you understand it.
And that's fine. Distinct potential in this thing. Just addition.
But like every parcel in the county.
No. The grand total of the study area we're talking about. And totals, it's all off word about.
You don't have to.
No, we
Is the 600 potential products in the core area, or are they?
It's mostly outside of the core area.
Right,
We're talking about entire suburban center.
Potential submarket. Within that, most of it's already built anyways, something, and there's only 600 more. But again, it's not within this core piece that we're talking about anyways. It's within the overall
Within the suburban center, within the entire Lorton, it's within that entire I think it's 2,000. It's approximately 2,000 acres or would make this the entire Lorton South Route 1 suburban center. So those units are spread throughout the suburban center, but most of them, aside for the ones that are within this land unit that we're sitting in, the subunit that we're sitting in, there's a lot that's missing here because a lot of the newer homes that you see along Richmond Highway, between Richmond Highway and Lorton Road, and in the area of Lorton Marketplace, they were actually built out below the actual by right zone potential. So a lot of them are right here, but the majority of them are outside of this area. Like some of them are off of Pohick Road. There's an industrial area outside of Pohick Road that can still be redeveloped for 160 some odd units. We're not counting those. We're not taking away the ability to do that.
So I'm not sure it's relevant to this area. I think in general, it's the entire suburban area for this has more capacity. And apparently it's only 600 within around it. And most of that's not within this area, within the part we're talking about anyway. So it's not affected by this anyhow.
Under the current zone.
Under the current zoning or under what we're talking about building it, it's not affecting this because they're not in the core study area.
And we're not changing it. We're not taking them away. It's unlikely to redevelop.
Basically. A lot of it is outside the core area. A lot of it is not going to redevelop. This is all actually kind of development.
Well, removing those numbers that are outside the core area, so the undeveloped potential in the comp plan that hasn't been developed, that number minus that
Becomes centralized.
minus that 600, removing that potential that's outside the core areas. That was kind of sprawled. It has not been built, but it has been planned.
Okay, but it's better. I'm still not there, but better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. County contingent.
And he's gonna go through, like Steven's got the slides tonight, he's gonna go through how he's come up with, like, where he's moved those numbers to. He can even show you where he moved some of the numbers from.
Eventually, those additional numbers will be helpful, so we can visualize what's not being changed, but what is included in the whole demographic and planning picture.
Yeah.
So that'll be helpful.
And I have that number for existing. I just don't want to mess up the presentation right now because I'm afraid if I click it, then it'll take over the screen. Okay. So then below the line, you also had some questions about transportation, and you see those bullet points, but before the county gets into answering a lot of the questions that you have about transportation, we need to be able to finish the land use study and, have these numbers that you've helped us come to in place. So then when those numbers are placed, FCDOT, the Department of Transportation, will know how to study the impacts on the transportation systems and everything like that. And then again, the hope is that once you see the numbers and the information and see how the plan is to kind of spread things out throughout the core area for the most part, that there'll be time for you all to have the deeper discussion about to try to build consensus. So that's for tonight. So the initial land use scenario was based on that you saw at the last task force meeting. It was based on the consultants' recommendations that there needed to be at least 2,800 new dwelling units planned for in the comprehensive plan to achieve the vision that you all adopted last May. So based on the information that you all asked us to, based on the information that you all asked and the feedback that you had at the last meeting, we've again expanded the areas that we are projecting to be potentially good for having a future plan for redevelopment. We've expanded those, and we've also gone up to that higher level of that transect model that we were looking at before. So in some cases, because at first being conservative, we were trying to just get closer to this number, to the 2,800, and we went 20 over the last time. So now we're going back and maximizing that potential that the consultants have recommended. So in some cases that they were recommending 25 dwellings per acre, we may have been looking at 16 dwellings per acre in that first model that we gave you. But now we're going up to the 25 for anywhere that they recommended 25. If they recommended 50, we're going to 50. They recommended 20, we're going to 20. And again, when you start looking at the maps and seeing how those sites lay out within the core area and how close they are to being walkable to those to the activity nodes we've been talking about, you'll kind of understand why it's important to have more people closer to those things. So hopefully you get fewer cars on the street, more people walking and biking to these sites. So that's the trade-off. The minimum number. Mm-hmm. This is the maximum number we could identify. If it,
So likely, okay, that would be good here, but not so good there, and stuff like that. We'll end up somewhere.
well, the key is you're going to end up between those numbers anyway when the impacts are studied, because it's not likely that you would get to the maximum just looking at land. There's going to be things that happen with land that kind of, and then there's going to be things that happen with transportation. As you increase the number of dwellings, you're going to have more park space. So then we're going to have to carve out park space from some of these places. So this number we're trying to get to a testing number, because when we come back to you, we're going to have that realistic number. And that's really where the really tough discussions about how we mitigate certain things, and if that mitigation is acceptable, that's where you're going to have those more in-depth discussions about it. So as you see, going from that 2,800, I mean, 22,820 dwelling units that we got up, kind of balancing the recommendations. When we went to the maximum of that recommendation, we gained 2,530 more units. So we're now up to 5,350 with a maximum build out. And again, as you've seen what happens at Lorton, and what happens in most cases, you hardly ever reach your maximum build out anyway. So yeah. So the land use mix for residential that you would see here, and we'll have some examples of that as we go through, are mixed use residential, high rise, mid rise, multifamily residential, above ground floor retail uses, mid rise multifamily residential, 2/2 stacked townhomes, and urban townhomes. So it'd be a mix of those types of development. You wouldn't see a lot of single family detached, a lot more single family detached as much as you see here now. So here's a look. The areas that are circled in that bold dark aqua color are the areas where that we've added to the transect model. You'll see up at number 1, Lorton Station, the task force asked to look at the whole area, not just looking at the VRE parking lot. So we're doing that. So that number grew at at number 2 for Lorton Marketplace. We didn't change any area that we're looking at, but we did add some numbers, some numbers, because there are some areas outside of where you see the concept that the consultants provided us, where something like transitional townhomes could be done between that and the existing residential around it. And then all around Gunston Plaza to the north, and also to the west of Gunston Plaza, you'll see that some of the numbers have changed there. And along Lorton Road, where you see those kind of bold, odd shapes, that's where the floodplain is anticipated to be redrawn, where the floodplain delineations are to be redrawn.
Say the rectangle area that you added should probably just about double in size to go up above the church there, because the side of that is actually the most dense and significant redevelopment. It's probably easier to consolidate the other part, so you should just include it.
The current comprehensive plan already has some recommendations for consolidation of that area. The reason why we have these areas colored in now is because they are in that transect. So they are within a 1/4.5 mile of Gunston Plaza, which is what Gunston Plaza for this activity node, for activity node 3, Gunston Plaza would be the center of where the most intense development is. So the idea would be to step down as you go north and closer to those other single family residences. So
Except for that helps.
And
so that's second.
And there's for that entire neighborhood, we've outlined it. That entire neighborhood, it already has some. We're definitely looking at the current options. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Pointed that placemaking after we saw
Well,
it.
that's a good question, and we're definitely going to take, even though this kind of started before that, we're going to look at anything that's innovative in placemaking, anything that's innovative in streetscape. We're going to consider everything that's, we've looked at case studies all throughout the county, from Merrifield. I was at Merrifield yesterday taking photos to not even just the county, the region. We looked at some of the things that they're doing for placemaking in places like Crystal City around National Landing. That's not to say that we think that Lorton becomes a Crystal City, or the scale of Crystal City, but you see a lot of things that are happening out there from the placemaking standpoint, and we definitely want to look at the information that the Planning Commission is privy to too, because when we write this, we're not going to say the comprehensive plan doesn't say this has to be here, this has to be here, but it kind of sets up for those types of things to come. And if there's something that we're not thinking of, or the Planning Commission isn't thinking of right now, we want to have flexibility, so that stuff can also be a part of it. So when we start writing the plan text, and we'll talk to you about the plan text at some of those future meetings, some of the things we want you to kind of think about is, like, use your imagination. How do these places make you feel? Are these places that you really want to, as we start writing these things, are you getting the feeling that this is the type of place you really want to, you find enjoyable, that you really want to spend your time in? And placemaking is a big part of that.
So the session that was weeks ago, so the information has that.
No.
Yeah, but when you have that information,
There has to be a lock on these things.
make that available here to this committee. But once that information has been published, that came out of that 2-day session, will that be made available to this committee so we can see what was?
We'll send it to you all in its native form, but we'll also come up with some ideas, and want you to come up with some ideas for what might work and what doesn't work from that. And all this, because it's the comprehensive plan, all this stuff is supposed to be inspirational and aspirational. So don't. Yeah.
And there was sort of some fresh ideas.
Yeah. We'll definitely, I'll find the link to it, and we'll share it with you all right now, because like I said, when we come back the next time, that's where we're going to be going to. The numbers are going to be ironed out by our analysis in the transportation study and the testing that everyone else has to do to see where the true impacts are. And then from there, yeah, we'll definitely do that. And as we're drafting it, you all will see what the draft is looking like. And, we're looking to you all for answers as well. So, when, like I said, when you have these types of examples, we want to know about it. If anybody goes to a place and says, hey, this would be great in Lorton, let us know about it, because we'll go out there and take a look at it ourselves, so. Mm-hmm.
This right now, really just the raw. And it's kind of reductive to do it that way, but the reason that we're doing it is so that we can then turn a set of numbers, the grand total, over to Tom and his team, so that they can do the traffic study and the multimodal transportation analysis. Because once we have the results of that, then we'd be able to see, well, we're going to do a streetscape, which a lot of placemaking based around the interface between land use and the street. What could that look like? Width of the road, the character of the road, the facilities that you want for bikes. We're focused on this, laser focused on it, because we can't do anything else until we have consensus on this. But we're definitely planning to come back with graphics and with visualizations that help describe the character of the place. We've got to do it the broader people.
And the final picture of the numbers, once the analysis happens, that'll also give us an idea of what types of placemaking would fit in which of the locations. So, yeah. So with here again, this is the transect model for residential density at the high end. Again, we're looking at the high end, and that gets us to that 5,000. I think it was 5,350 number that we were looking at before. but we kind of want to show you how it happened in some of these places. So you'll remember at the top at Lorton Station, in the past, we were looking at 366 units. But then when we added that additional area, those other parking lots, and then that and then the area around the existing town center, if someone wants to redevelop that, we got up to 900 units right there. And you know, the idea there would be in the darkest red, that's where you would have the tallest buildings and some of the you know, the most densely populated buildings, and then you would kind of step down into the pink area because that's where you're getting closer to the lower density that's at the neighboring property owner. So the other good thing about that is having more density around the VRE station. You know that there's this plan to add another rail for VRE and to increase the frequency of VRE trips. So having more people there, close to that, people don't have to get in their cars. You know, there's more people who will walk across the parking lot and jump on the train than there are maybe people who will drive like from 3 miles away and take 20 minutes to get 3 miles. If they do that, you know, some people may feel it's better off for them to just get on the highway and drive themselves on into work. So. Mm-hmm.
So we decided that we're not gonna go further down, touch the train overpass is, and you got the rental RV place.
That's way north of there. This is like 7-Eleven. This is that way.
Right, I know, but I'm going south. This is going south.
Yeah, but where it says the 4th,
Yeah,
well, that's where it says 40, that's actually north of us right now.
With the areas farther south, at first we were thinking totally non-residential, but
Yeah.
that way. That would.
so 95.
Yeah,
We-
between south.
just- Yeah,
Just south of that.
We're south of the 40. Yeah. Now we're just talking about the core area right here, but yeah, with these numbers, because most of the numbers would be concentrated in the core area, that's why we're looking at that. But there's a slide to look at some of the stuff south, like in that area you were talking about, Walter. And with that, following the lead of the Economic Development Authority, we are open to the idea of possibly having some residential down there if it fits the use that someone puts down there. So they have a feeling that it could be a good spot for an innovation campus. So if someone came and wanted to build an innovation campus, it's likely that they would want the people who are working there, people who may be instructing there, or people who are taking instruction there to have somewhere close by. So if someone came in with a plan to do that and all the components fit with residential, we would definitely look at residential in that area. And then we're going to, and when we write the comprehensive plan, we're definitely going to leave the door open for that to happen. So right now, when you look at that total number of 5,350, I think we have 380 that are kind of ghosted in for that area anyway. So we're just thinking, you know, if we're maxing this out, let's look at the big picture, you know. Ask your question.
It's okay.
Mhm.
Just for example, 500. There. Is that what is already there, or is that there's potential for 500 more than what's already there? What is that 500 something represent?
For that area, there are currently, I think, 634 garden style apartment units. And that's where the Woods of Fairfax is. So if someone were to come in using the transect model that we keep talking about, it's kind of like a heat map. The darkest color is the hottest color. That's where most people are. So what would happen with those 500 dwelling units? That's 28.5 acres. We'll get to that. We're going to look at everything closer in, but tonight we're going to look at that okay. But the point of this map too, though, is to kind of look at the top. We gained 534 units by adding the rest of the town center. Then along Lorton Road, I call them the butterfly, the orange and the kind of pink color with 300 each. We gained 100. Actually, no, I messed that number up. We gained 200 units on each of those parcels just by looking at by increasing the density to 25 units per acre, and also adding the additional space that's likely to come out of the floodplain. So more developable land plus a higher density got us more units, the ability to see more units in those areas.
Square rectangle, you have the 200 church. Some really nice homes. In fact, there's one house that's going for $1 million. Is it feasible that they would even sell out, or I'm not familiar with this process?
One of the reasons we're looking at that area again is because that area already has a option for higher density, but that density stops at eight units per acre. So now if you're looking at these ones at 25 units per acre and 20 units per acre, you never know. The neighbors could get together and decide that it's worth their while to look at something else. It's
So make the map work, and I overpay for this one. If I spread it across the others, is effectively what happens. So generally speaking, the issue, and this is a very important issue throughout, it's that it's like the Woods of Fairfax. There's already existing homes there. All that would have to be bought out. They're expensive already. And then the question is, did you create a big enough bump that could generate enough to buy it all out, pay for that, and then pay for all the new development and all that? And frankly, in many cases, it may or may not happen anytime soon, if at all.
That's why I was asking about, Tim, why I was asking the question about 500 dwelling units that we're talking about later.
Right.
Because if you give it like a 10 or 20% density increase as instead of redevelopment, it's never ever. Right. You get that density up to like 100 for that $1 million house. You're talking about all of a sudden it's all the ones for $2 million, but all of a sudden it becomes feasible. But if it's only worth $1 million, the density you sign it, you get absolutely right. So it's all about how much density is living, what they're buying, what's all this. That's why I'm saying that's 500 additional. Well, that's Fairfax. Okay, you know what? But if it's like 100.
okay. What do you think?
We have a comment about it's not showing the color on Station Boulevard, and whether or not that should be included. We'll take a look at that area though. In looking at this here, I think we were looking at the half-mile kind of originating around Gunston, but there is a half-mile transect. Yes.
For the other one.
Essentially, it's enough to move.
My main motivation for mentioning it was that it helps connect for the station.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's a rationale there for sure. And yeah, we'll take a look at that. Similar adjustment.
And I think your point in general is a wise one anyway, because we don't have necessarily a center that is one of the three. The idea is to kind of create them all.
Connect them.
Bring them together.
Yeah.
So that it wouldn't necessarily be that one or this one or the other. So a lot more of it fits within the transect, and the stepped out a quarter mile anyways. And I think that's the right approach to
Yeah.
make.
Yeah, and again, the reason we're not showing it is just because that entire site already has an option to go higher. So it's something we're definitely going to consider, like Graham said. So I'm gonna, because because you've already started getting into some depth with this. I'm just gonna start opening it up to the site specific stuff and kind of let you get a closer look. And this is where you can kind of see where the numbers are changing now, and what the total number is for each transect. So when you see up at Lorton Station, again, that's in that darker color is in the mixed use central node. And this is what I was saying before, we've gone from about 7 acres up to 23 acres now. So that number has gone from at the site we were originally looking at, from 366 to 650, and then adding the additional 10 acres of the remaining part of the town center, it would be another 250. So you're going basically from this original idea of getting 366 additional units there to now looking at 900, potentially 900 units there at the high end again.
Assuming that the area above the oval, very top of the oval, that goes into, it's not outlined in anything. It looks like a treed area, et cetera. That is a safe area or green space for that, or photography.
It's open space owned by the townhomes to the north. So it's space that they had to have based on the size of the lots. They had to have an additional amount of open space when they go to a smaller land. When it was zoned and when it was built. So everything we're looking at is within the town center area of the town center, if that makes sense. The area that has that mixed use, that already has some sort of mixed use and higher density residential, and also a vast amount of parking spaces. So. That would be the hope, that structured parking, using the land more wisely than just having that parking lot and then building up some too. I think when the consultants first looked at it, they were at 4 stories, and the number was even a lot lower. And then when they talked to you all, I think there was a consensus that you all would be comfortable with going up to around 6 or 7 stories, closer to the rail. So it just. For density, yeah. Exactly. Now this is just exactly. Now this is just a look of some of the this is just some examples, precedent images of things that have the types of development that have already been built in Fairfax County that could possibly be there. Not to say it would look exactly like that, but it's kind of close to the height and the types of designs that could fit within the densities that get you up to that higher end of the density range. And the concept that you see along the area that's mainly currently parking lot right now. When we were talking about concepts before, that's the concept. We just kind of overlaid the concept that we've already seen from the consultants several times onto this map, just to kind of show that this could be where the streets are and where the buildings could be.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, there's currently an apartment there, and that looks to be about the approximate same size. Is that correct or not? There's an apartment in Lorton Station.
There are apartments at the
That's like the one at the corner. One-
it's in like
That's-
Beacon.
Down there in the corner,
Yeah.
right across from the gate at,
Oh, that's nice. Okay,
Yeah, county stories.
yeah, I definitely will. Okay, yeah, that's,
So Stephen, is it too early to know if structured parking would go there or?
The consultant's recommendation is for structured parking, and I think it would be integrated. It could be integrated and wrapped in the building, but they're also showing structured parking closer to the rail, so you kind of have that buffer of the parking area between your home and the railroad, in addition to needing ample sound attenuation as well.
is there any discussion with the consultant bring up the integration of the current VRE station into a structure
That
already existing, or not a new structure, where the ticket area, the waiting area, et cetera, was worked into the same, right next to where it's a park building, living, parking.
that would be in these areas where you see around that kind of around that central green, that would, like, driving around that central green could kind of be like an area where you would drop someone off and they could go into like a ticket office and purchase their ticket, or wait, if the weather's bad before they go out to the platform, things of that nature. So that would be something that could definitely be integrated into the ground floor. So you wouldn't just be looking at retail. South Alex.
Not something.
Oh.
It's to add,
Okay.
so that would, I think, nice done against.
That'll be something we can definitely look at.
Yeah, that.
It is nice, and it looks really, it's appropriate, in that location, smaller, 8 stories. But I think, yeah, it's adjacent to the metro station, like, it's a good separation. Good way. Metro station.
So with that, just looking at this site, we're going to move site through site, I guess, by number. So we have that.
Look at the consensus for this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so start over here. Yeah.
it's great. I mean, the only suggestion, I know this isn't totally in our target area. I am concerned about the lack of sidewalks along Pohick Road. You're probably familiar with that going.
The others.
I don't know if that would be addressed as well.
That's something I think there are some incomplete trails or roadside paths or sidewalks in that area.
Yes.
You guys are all familiar with it. I worry so much about, there's a lot of low income families walking on the streets at night. It's really a danger. It's just another time.
Rocking.
And
I didn't, so that's already been.
You're right on it. Catherine, you're right on it. Right on.
That's the only concern I have.
What we're speaking of.
You're okay with the density?
Yeah, because I drive by at night. I'm just like praying that somebody's not gonna walk up.
and that'll be something that FCDOT will be looking at as well. That Pohick Road, the way we've been looking at the recommendations from the consultants, even if the entirety of Pohick Road on both sides is in the core area, the whole idea is not only to have more development at the core area, but to make it easier for the people who aren't in the core area to get into the core area. So,
It's just a lot of
cut into it.
that's transportation. So making it more accessible.
How is it that it's not full?
I don't know.
How is it?
Yeah.
working?
So you're good with the densities?
Yeah, I'm 10 minutes. Sorry.
if we add a couple more levels. And, I mean, I'm good with what's there, but if we can, add more levels, it'll increase the density.
What's there now?
Correct. And I think Walter made a good point, as far as underground parking is concerned. Most of the, apartment buildings in Arlington, have underground parking, of course, because we're limited by space. But it's just more convenient for the tenants, to jump on the elevator, ride down to the parking garage, get their vehicles and go wherever. And even, if this is close to the VRE, they can just get in the elevator, just, walk over. It's just a bit more convenient. So they're not so exposed to the outdoors, you have to snow coming in to the structure parking.
Right.
So, it's just a little bit, safer, from my perspective. But as far as, this right here, this depiction, I would say, I mean, I'm good with the, residential over retail. If we can put some more levels up, I think it'll be great.
At least 2 more levels on the mid-rise residential over retail
Okay.
and everything that Wendy said, but without air. Yeah, I'm thinking phalanx. I'm thinking when you go up 95 and you see larger size building structure, the question will be whether it will drive VRE or VRE will drive it. What will be the transportation nugget that will entice people to be able to say exactly what you're saying? My car's parked underground there. I don't have to worry about getting the snow or the rain. And I can get right on the train, and the train's not running at least every hour or better. So I mean, that's the model I would be looking at.
As far as I'm just taking it all and trying to get a good understanding of what's going on.
So I'm all about that. Surprising here is the density we need to accomplish our goal. Require. If you take significantly more density than you need to accomplish those things, you create more problems, schools, transportation, that kind of thing. So I'm looking for the balance to accomplish the amenities we are trying to acquire and not significantly more. So that would be my I'm not good with calling and setting stories, with respect to your opinion. Just sense.
I'm fine with the density and fine with going high.
Yes, couple things. A few weeks ago, down in South Melbourne, we reviewed and approved, recommended approval for a similar density like this with garage parking and 2 levels of retail.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if we kept the second floor level.
I just did not do the second.
Yeah.
Level.
So I know that's always, that's an option sometimes. But I think the first floor retail, if you do it, is good. I like the underground parking. It raises the cost, but at the same time, I totally agree with the convenience. I'm thinking that it may be, if possible, you're presenting a whole lot. I'm supporting it, but you're presenting a whole lot of new residential density. It may be helpful for the school system sooner rather than later to get a guesstimate of what's going to be there. So we start thinking for that plan now, because it takes a long time to get the additional school facility you need. Sooner you start planning, I mean, you've got elementary, junior high, senior high schools here. Everything in, it's a very busy area now for schools. So if we can get some some general estimates of what this kind of development density would be, I think it would be very helpful. So our colleagues at the school system are starting to think about this too.
We'll definitely be looking at this, and schools looked at the lower end of that 2820 already. So when we boost this number up, we're going to have to let them take another look at it. So.
I think it's pretty good. I wonder about the retail. Retail is always the challenge. It's the last piece that comes in place, and everybody wants to live, work, play. And I'm doing this in other areas outside of the Washington D.C. area. And everybody wants what we want, which is the retail and all the other pieces. But you have to create the residences first, and that's the last piece. Because at the same time, as we all know, people are shopping online and they're not walking around and going buying as much in a lot of those. So I worry a little bit about the location of this retail, which is that it's at the very end of the border. Now, yes, I think we need some anyways there, and that would be maybe for that community and for that,
Yes.
for that, for the VRE,
I'm happy to-
but I'm not sure how much retail you can probably put in that spot, because it would be the kind of the furthest piece away from everything else, but otherwise, I think it's a fine layout, so, yes.
I agree. I believe what Kathy was talking about with walkability, that was a part of our study where we need to make it all walkable and safe for all areas of Lorton. I do agree with taller as well. Because even though we're trying to get to a density area, this is undeveloped location that will make it, the probability is more feasible that's going to happen there than having to rebuy current parcels. So.
Good point.
And then also to your point with the retail, probably can repurpose some of the things that's there, where you can't see because it's on the back end of the VRE. But they have some very practical things there, like a bank.
The bank side.
Bank, dry cleaner.
Yeah, sandwich shop. So there's things that you would just want to do and not have to, shop where you live.
Pop up on my way to the train.
I do have a question about this. So is it one or the other for our consensus? Because the stack on stack townhouses, I think there's enough in that area where, like I'm saying, you can take those current shops, take them to the VRE, and then you can still have like that Huntington stacked on stack townhouse up along Lorton Station Boulevard.
It's not one or the other. It's two different sections, really.
Oh.
The other one is just it's that area where you could fit about 50. It's there's a nursery in there that was kind of like a holdout property. So it's about both. Yeah. Probably because of the lighting, it may not be picking up the arrow. Mhm.
They must have helped out some.
Yeah. There's a nursery, like a contractor's yard for a nursery business, I think. Here. So it's an and.
That's right off of, is it? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the one on the side. Yeah.
No, when you're going 95, going south to Lord, just before you get to the Lord exit, there's a large parking garage. When you go back in there's an apartment complex. They have the garage, I believe, inside. My understanding is they have a car wash, they have a lot of amenities for it. Apartment complex.
So
And it's much higher than this.
okay. So I think what we've heard for this one is I think the outlook for the density, especially with looking at that larger area now, sounds acceptable for a majority of the task force, and even possibly consider an additional height is also acceptable. And the good thing about height is, I think done right, if you're considering going up in height, that means you also get more public space. You get more space to have your plazas and things like that too. So we're gonna that'll be some of the things we're consider. But the big thing from tonight is that number, you're okay with that number for this transect, and that's where we're going to move forward with. Back to that number. Okay.
We have a lot.
Yeah, I don't think like when there's potential for development, I don't, you know, I don't really think that really comes into play. What, you know, whether that's good or bad or not. Being that this is a county property, there could be an option to have more affordable units than would be on non-county property. So that could be possibly something that could help people who are unhoused find a way toward housing, or there are other services that might be available in the area. So it could be a benefit, having the density there.
They built the multi-story building across the Sully Gate, and there was a Burger King on the corner. That was the hub for the homeless. Because I used to work on the census, so we used to go out there and try to go find the tents all in that area. And so they got displaced from there too.
Oh, wow. So it's still a facility right outside.
That facility has been there since I've been here since '98, but the homeless would still be, yeah.
They can be sheltered.
Yeah, in that area, right behind where that Burger King used to be, right across from Sully.
Right, right. I think some take the bus down and they set up encampment in the woods.
It may be useful based on this conversation. Obviously not for inclusion in the comp plan language, but as a separate recommendation to say, consider, establishing, a head count of the homeless population and what needs might be required.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
great.
we can also follow up with, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
Follow up with the officers that have been in homelessness.
Yeah.
One thing that we've done fairly recently on a couple of sites for the past couple of years, it's been looking at the new model for trying to house the homeless, which is called permanent supportive housing, which was released a proposal that went to the planning commission a couple of months ago. We had worked on actually. So there are some things we can do with the comp plan in terms of suggesting that would be an appropriate use in this area.
Mhm.
It's a model we're trying to get people into permanent housing. It's not like a shelter. It's a new model saying where people have a lease. It's a place where they can go, but it's not just housing. It's additional services, case management. If there's the need, and also the development would be something to do. So any part of it.
Yeah, and again, the fact that a large portion of this property is owned by the county, if there is a need, that gives us potentially a direct means to address the need too. So that's great. Yeah. So now we're on
One last question. Flood plan delineation. Not understanding how you reduce what is an already established floodplain as to allowing then something on it. I thought that was the definition of Huntington when it floods. And we only spent hundreds of millions of dollars funded money in order to fix it. So I'm just trying to understand what that gets us.
Yeah, I can take that question. So the map that you see with the purple and the circle, that's the map of what FEMA calls their proposed changes to the FEMA firm, which is a fancy way of saying changes that FEMA is thinking about making to the official flood maps. So the areas that you see in purple, it's not approved yet. It's not formally done yet. But the county is working with FEMA as we speak on potentially changes to maps all across the county. So of interest is that area in purple. And so the areas in purple
are areas that are currently mapped as flood zone, so AE, floodplain. We have restrictions. And those are areas that would be proposed to be removed from that AE flood zone and put into an X. Normal, no flood.
The feds doing that through FEMA.
Yep.
Would not affect their insurability.
It would make it easier.
Easier.
Yeah. Because they'd be taken, yes, areas in purple would be taken out of the reason that we put that in there is because that opens up the possibility that with changes to the floodplain, there's now an open question about the areas that are currently coterminous of flood zones called resource protection areas. And that's where the county's level of environmental protection kicks in. So if flood zone is no more in those areas, then those areas
are developed.
There's potential with a subsequent resource protection area delineation to say, wait, we might actually have a developable site where there wasn't previously that ability. So that's the rationale and why we've been looking at that is those are areas that are subject to a potential change probably next year. And so we wanted to memorialize that when we're doing our impact analysis, because with those two assumptions, these are perfectly good otherwise sites.
Thank you for the clarification.
And also, were you also asking how FEMA gets to that point of determining what comes out, or?
I'll care less. Then allow owner and or developer the ability to build on that and still insure it.
Yep.
I don't want to Florida-ize. That'll be nice. Guys go to Florida. I want to watch Florida do that same FEMA discussion there. I'll buy the liquor for that. But when I look at what that could represent, that's a tip of an iceberg in a lot of ways. Because it does bump into that RPA up above, which when we were looking to place this community center, whether it was here joined with the library, there was the RPA area right across. The supervisor's office told us you can't do that because that's a sensitive area. There are plants and grasses and things in there that don't exist anyplace else in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Yep.
Their words. And so therefore that was incredibly sensitive ecologically,
Mm-hmm.
and that everyone went, okay, I just want to make sure we're following some of that same philosophy within doing this, which then got us into the idea of the Riverwalk ID along the creek in order to create walkability, the walkability and connection. I still don't think anyone's going to play Frogger and go across Lord Road. That's just not going to happen. I don't care how many times we talk about it. No one's presented yet a model as how we connect those two.
And the thing is, though, when you think about developable land, tonight's discussion is just to get us to that number. But when we start looking at the increase of developable land, we're also going to be looking to see, hey, is this an area where we can now put a 9-foot wide trail instead of having a 4-foot wide? We're going to look at all that, and by the time this gets adopted, if the map isn't adopted, whatever happens with this plan will not prevent you from being able to do some of those things you're talking about with regard to the floodplain. Now, we can't change a globally rare area or anything like that, an area that has globally rare species. The comprehensive plan isn't going to recommend changing there, but the comprehensive plan can say, find where the areas are with the least impact to the floodplain and put some trails there, So now we're on number 2. Kind of got into this area about how we picked up some of the numbers that were increased for this area by looking at that map. And because the area expanded, we also, like I was saying before, we also went higher in the density range now. Originally, when we came to you with the numbers, we were looking at a maximum of 16 dwellings per acre in those areas. Now we're going to the top of the recommendation within a quarter mile of the center of these activity nodes or the activity node, the central areas that would be redeveloped as these activity nodes. We're going up to 25 units per acre using the full extent of what the consultants have recommended. So that's the outlook for this area. On Lorton Marketplace, there was an addition of 50 units. That's just thinking that around the fringe of this area, you might find some additional space where some townhomes could go. You know, kind of to, you know, to kind of have that transition between where existing townhomes are. And if you get something like that, then maybe you have some access between the two townhomes where people at the townhomes that are farther away and not a part of the development can walk through the new development to get to this center. So that's kind of the thinking of that. And our number now is up to 1,050 within the entire transect. That's with 800 on at the mixed use center, and then with up to 250 in that residential uses within a quarter mile of it. And again, here's another view of the concept that Renaissance Planning provided for us last fall, and how those internal streets and what the heights might be at this site. And then when you look around some of the areas that don't have the coloring that they've done, those are the areas where if someone wanted to redevelop, they could do something like townhomes, or even, you know, even going to what we've seen before, the low to mid-rise residential mixed use. And the mixed use, it's basically residential over some sort of non-residential uses like retail, services, things of that nature.
So regarding the primary ground line between the numbered sections, is that behind the retail, or is that in front? Is that in front? Is that in the parking area?
It would be between. It would be in the there would be another street, like a smaller street that would go down this road, and it would be kind of set up in blocks. So on one side you'd have some residential and retail. On the north end, it would be that grayed out area would be structured parking, so somebody could come in and park and move about the area. Mm-hmm.
Sections that are numbered right now, would that be built in the parking areas?
It would mostly be in the parking areas. Yep. And it would be, it could be all residential, or it could be like residential, like what we're showing here, residential over mixed uses. So, or residential mixed uses. Yeah. Possibly. It'd probably be, yeah, it would be an exit to Lorton Road. It'd probably be exit only. Or maybe right in, right out. Mm-hmm. Yep. And mainly the parking area filled in with more buildings, and then also having some open space and things of that nature, you know, places for people to hang out, outdoor dining, things like that.
Pedestrians, which you see frequently, walking along to get food and etc. Before their trains, which you see a lot of people doing that. Is that something that's been considered here? And is there any, are there any options to build a pedestrian bridge, or if that's possible, to the VRE ramp from the Amtrak or the auto train?
FCDOT will look at all the options for either common traffic, so it's easier to cross at the grade level, or if there are any other ways to cross it. That's what they'll be looking at that with their consultants too. So.
I'm not sure. I'm even Wheelie Road. Wheelie
Yes.
Road cross bridge that just completed it. Would something like that be feasible?
Potentially, I mean, that's the Washington and Old Dominion Trail, so I mean, it's heavy foot and bicycle traffic. So I don't know if
it would be more warranted there. That used to be something. But it's a beautiful bridge. It's a little bit crazier.
I would think that we might have a lot of traffic trying to get to the VRE from the Amtrak
So,
to make it accessible to the city, especially from the hour. And people are, a lot of the New Jersey, New York people are savvy train wise, trying to figure out.
so see if we can go back to.
Mhm.
So we talked about the road routes. So this area here, would this not be a good place for a hotel?
This will be one of the areas where we definitely consider a hotel in that use mix. Right off of 95. Yeah. And again, we won't say that a hotel needs to be here, but we'll say a hotel is one of the things that should be considered in your mix of uses.
Don't see that in the vision. So the way that the smaller parcels are sectioned off, I thought that was gonna be more the plan for the Route 1 corridor, to try to catch the people before they go to Woodbury.
Mhm.
For what? For the hotel?
So for 4 to 5 story residential area in this section, because now we're getting towards what I'm calling our center.
Well-
Because what we were showing here, that was the top, that was the beginning of what.
Well, the center for along Richmond Highway, when we get to that one's recommended to be up to 10 stories. So we'll have some examples to show for that too.
Putting the higher density of additional people by the VRE, okay. Route 1, okay. Right here, not okay.
Yeah.
So that's not okay.
Okay. We can go around.
Are we at the point now where we go around?
You can go around.
Okay. I'll start over here doing that.
So I would be
Are you thinking
I
3 to
think-
4? Or?
yeah, I would think that, I'm at first, I have to see it, right? And so I think of things that I've already seen. I think 4 to 5 is just too high. I don't know necessarily we have the right mix of retail there. Even
You're talking about 4 to 5 stories.
4 to 5 stories, right? And so when I think 4 to 5 stories, my mind is thinking residential, where does everything need to be mixed use? But this just can just be retail, because we already have enough homes and townhomes in this neighborhood. Because when that's closer to your area.
Don't feel like you're by yourself.
So I guess the summary to what I would say is I'm looking at the low to mid rise, because I'm looking at the visual and I'm looking at the stacked 2 to 2 townhomes. And for both for residential in that area, I would think this area would be best optimized to have more retail than a mixed bag of residential, because you're gonna have the residential surrounding it. That's what they're gonna want to do.
And I guess one thing to think about when you think about that is just the state of retail. It's kind of like if you leave it at retail, you may only get what you have there now. So it may not change. So
I know they have retail across the street, but when you're in the Woodbridge, and I don't even know what the name of that complex is.
Stonebridge.
It's all retail. The residential is across the street, which we would have the residential across the street. So
Are we eliminating the retail here?
It would be a kind of transitional it would be going from what you have now, strip commercial to like a mixed use. But the plan would still be to have on one of those larger sites, like maybe even integrated in that parking area. When Renaissance talked about it, there would still be there could still be a place for a grocery store or something, things of that nature.
You think one of the if the interest in retail is kind of the primary focus, or if it's a reluctance to consider additional height in residential. And the reason that I bring that up is a lot of times when we have existing shopping centers that are proposed for redevelopment, we'll go out into the community, maybe like this, for example, and a lot of people will see a redevelopment, those will say, I shop here, that's my spot where I go. It's part of my daily routine and that sort of thing. And so a lot of developers will revise their plans, not always successfully, sometimes successfully though, to try to beef up the amount of retail that's there, so that the character of the environment might change, but the character of the retail doesn't. So you still have the grocery store, you still have the ability to have like a glory days or types of retail that's there for that kind of neighborhood shopping center type of use. It's just that you have the addition of of additional height, obviously, and other uses there to help kind of support that in the future. So that was the reason I was asking: is it more about the introduction of the new uses, or is it more about the preservation of the neighborhood kind of center function at that site?
So I would say for me, it's more of, I would want new uses, better uses, a place where I can go eat, shop, and get entertained. And currently I don't have any place in Lorton where I can entertain. I would either go south, east, or north. But I'm not, being entertaining in that shopping center.
Mm-hmm.
So or I'm going to Tyson's. So it would be nice if they do go to a multi-storage, multi-level, maybe one level up or something like that. And not imagine because I know at one point we talked about, can we get a Home Depot? Can we get right off of the 95? I don't know what we got at Five Below. But to imagine that I'm not ingrained or locked in to any store there, but it would be nice if we got something like more, a movie theater or a bowling alley, something for family centralization. And we're going to attract non-Lorton residents because they're going to be coming off of 95 and they're going to stop here and they're going to want to eat, shop, and then potentially live. But the living is not too close to the activity, because you want it close, but you don't want it too close.
Yeah.
Totally down for all the right reasons. Look at that layout. That's really simpler. So it's right next to all the transportation, sort of the outside people that you're talking about. Everything you're saying is spot on.
I believe Stonebridge is more like one level.
Yeah, all retail. I just look at that. The layout of the streets and stuff is what I'm talking about. There's a central street like Stonebridge has.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I'm saying. That could be like our Stonebridge.
Yeah, actually sounds out.
So let me just keep moving it around. We are here until 8:30 and we are not on the last spot here.
I'm not fully sure I understand exactly all the points you're making, but I think the point I pick up on the most is that it's currently a retail shopping center. I think retail and shopping should continue to be on that site. And that's part of the attraction that we would say so close to the Amtrak that people could come over there. And it's also right close to 95. So you can get in and out without going through the rest of Lorton. So I'd like to continue to see that there and I'm a little concerned of wiping out all the retail to put in residential when we're trying to, when the whole point of this is to increase the opportunities for retail. So I think I've seen it where they can become a more a retail center with just intensity and structured parking to do it, and if that's what the intent is, that's okay. But I wouldn't want to give up any more of too much of that retail. Now, obviously, the retail that's currently there is somewhat stressed. And that's why we ended up buying it below, right? And it's because it's the Amazon, the shoppers doesn't need it. Amazon Fresh didn't need it. I'm not sure how long that Amazon Fresh will be counted on there. But in general, I think it needs to continue to have some retail components on it, and I would want to advocate for that. Otherwise, I'm okay with it.
And then that would be the for with mixed use, that I think that was one of the ideas that I think that was one of the ideas that Renaissance had in mind too, was keeping a grocery store component there,
Yes.
keeping some of the things. So it's more than just a neighborhood serving, it's more of a community serving type of shop, in kind of like the quicker stop, so you don't get into the downtown stuff if you want to do a few things. So we'll continue to look at some of the things, and as we move, like I said, the first thing I guess is trying to see if you think this number is too high, and then the second thing will be after we've done the analysis, we'll come back with that plan text that kind of defines what you all are looking for in this kind of thing where it's.
One more thing, talking about raw numbers with the presentation. Yeah, comp plan does have some guidance for minimum square footages for neighborhood shopping centers, or slightly larger shopping centers. So we can take a look at that, as well as the amount of retail that's out there today, to see if there's some sort of either target or some type of minimum retail component that we would want to see in a redevelopment option, if it were to include that other mix of residential, so that we're keeping that retail there, even if it were to change in terms of the character of the environment there, they still have that experience of retail that's similar.
And I'm glad you said that, Graham, because that made me think this site was intended to be exactly what you're talking about, Angelique. It actually has a current adopted option to be a totally fully retail mixed use with some office center with no residential at a higher intensity than what it was built. And for some reason, when they built it out, the developers chose to go to the lower intensity and just build a strip shopping center here. So some of the things you think about when you do the comprehensive plan is when you kind of, the more you add, the more there's a possibility to get more on their investment, because they had that option out there to go to a higher intensity and do that mixed use where it was just like retail, office, mixed use, non-residential completely. And they didn't go with it. They just did the base level strip shopping center.
That's the balance, I think, that you're trying to get that. And the
Mhm.
price was always, we're gonna need more residents, in order to kind of get that kind of vision accomplished. And where's the balance? I mean, I think we'll keep going around, but I think people in general want this to be still more commercial centric,
Exactly.
with the focus being on residential.
The supportive residential. Yeah.
I think one of the challenges we're having is that illustration itself. It looks very big, very tall, very, typical pattern. Canyon-like, exactly. And I'm wondering if we don't maybe change out that picture to represent something more similar to the Mosaic District. So that you're looking at a different model for how you combine residential and retail. And you can still have some, traditional retail, you've got getting in and out of the store quickly. I tend to agree with the Amazon Fresh analysis too. I think it's going to have problems there. It's not doing well. But I think this is where we get into the, sense of place, that kind of design. But I think you could probably make something that combines the best of Stonebridge and the best of Mosaic into and kind of melding a point here that makes it more attractive, makes it more community, and still gives it a different design. It still gives it the retail and the residential on it. My
Okay.
guess.
So I agree with everything I've heard, and what makes important thing that we basically have this blank canvas right now. And we have 3 nodes that we're dealing with, and each can have its own thing. But we gotta make it walkable and you can activity there. So this area should be, in my opinion, heavily retail or commercial. We gotta think that office space, will it ever come back? Down. I mean, in banking, and in the banking role that I'm in now, most of my support people that 10 years ago that were on a call with, they're now working from home, they can be in California, North Carolina, wherever. We are all not sitting in an office.
Yeah.
That's just what.
My thoughts on this, I agree with the concept of minimizing the rich residential here. Occupancy and, I hear you too. What was about that's the mosaic and stuff that those no rich. I can see where this, and one of the reasons is, as I look around me, about half of us here are not living places that are absolutely, under no circumstances, walk to this border. Get to it. Or so we can start walking forward at every age, we'll want to walk less and less. So I think like Stonebridge walking, I mean, drivable and shopping and stuff like that. Yeah, it is. But it is for me, all of us, probably. The 2 places we have in work right now where that's available, we can talk about doing so. This would be a perfect place to leave. So there was some service parking, Stonebridge. So I see Stonebridge, that's what I want in Stonebridge for this. So you can come from outside of this and get some basic abilities. Because again, half of us sitting around the table don't go to this. And we need a place to do those things.
Well, let me suggest one thing just from a different perspective. As well, they're adding 70 units. The plan is all they've added. It's a total of 800 units, of 37 acres. I'm going to tell you, I don't know how you'd be able to afford to buy a shopping center and tear it down and put in, getting you 800 units would not work. It just won't work whatsoever. I don't care what you're doing. It's not going to happen.
We don't have to necessarily tear the whole thing down.
Well,
It's all those set up right
that's what-
now for that central street.
But that's
It's the street in
the
front of
plan here. It's because they've got a whole new street in there and they're taking out the
But
plan shows we're taking out the retail.
that street is right in front of the stores right now. It's the same place.
Yeah,
That
but-
street. Basically, you built the other side of that main corridor there on the other side with the other retail and stuff that you want, and leave some surface parking on one end or the other. You wouldn't necessarily have to scrape that to get it to a Stonebridge type thing.
I'm just saying that in general, the amount of purchase costs to get that going in there is going to be, it's going to be very high, very expensive. And it's not that many units for 37 acres. It's not a lot of units.
How about you just give the current owner the opportunity to build some more in the parking lot?
That's effectively, yeah. I mean,
Steve already described this is a good conversation, but Steve's already described, there already is an adopted plan option to
Yes.
do.
Mhm.
So the option was there, it just wasn't exercised.
That was decided, and when that was done, we had about half the density that it has even today. If you look back at the timeline, except that the population growth, and stuff like that, we'll find something similar to that. And we're talking about adding significantly more density. So it's as much as 4 times more feasible than it was originally developed.
Let's keep going around here. We're down to 10 minutes
I
here.
know we keep jumping around. Like if when we say we're going around, let's
Right,
jump
right.
around.
Right, yeah. Let's look to the left.
Sure.
Keep going.
Yeah, I'll just say, I'm not too familiar with the dwelling units and the increase, but I do think we need an increase of like, retail in the space. I do agree with, the Stonebridge aspect and trying to bring that to Laura. And I hate that I have to drive all the way down to Stonebridge to do that, but we could do that here. I think they're also trying to develop that Stonebridge kind of style by closer to like Laura Hill and that, with the Lidl and the Top of Rock. They're trying to kind of develop that there. So I think we can also add that to the Laura marketplace. Pretty competitive.
Well, just hearing you all talk, and I don't want to talk too much and take y'all's time, but one area that I thought about when you talked about shorter heights, but then there's also people kind of talking about the best of both worlds. Possibly think about what's happening at Fairfax Corner, like right across from where we work. You have those single and 2-story buildings with some retail around it, and then but it's wrapped in residential. There's even a 12-story residential building over there. So that's kind of how you could that could kind of be how you balance out lower height buildings and I don't know. Open space. There's a movie theater there, things like that. So I mean, if that's the type of example you like the type of example from our and from President images you'd like to see, we can add photos for that.
On Stonebridge is not a great park. You know, I've heard Stonebridge now mentioned 6 times. Parking model currently for Stonebridge is atrocious. Can't park on the main street. We can't park in the back. Those get all taken very quickly. Having a new EV, I can tell you those EV slots, you need to name a child in order to get one. So you end up at the far end or on the other hinterland parking areas. So before you can say Stonebridge, you got to deal with the parking process. Number 2,
Get your steps in.
somewhat. Next is the original theory brought 3 years when we first started this task force. Leah was in middle school. We were talking about the staff, county staff thought we were going to be all going north to do our commerce. The original staff theory sold to us for the BRT was we were all going north. And I remember Nick and I sitting at the meeting and they went around and said, where do you shop? And we were sitting there going, I don't go to North Hill. I don't go up there. I don't go north. I go south and west. That's what I go. And that was just an aha moment. We're still kind of thinking that way. And I wanted to get us out of that. We're basing retail thoughts on past models that are still being renovated, reviewed, changed, and shelved. Okay, and I agree with selective retail. It's gonna have to be clever retail, Forever 71. I think that those are probably gonna be a lot bigger and for certain segments of the population. But that's what you have to be looking at rather than just saying retail. Because it's gonna become an era of specialized retail that I will decide to go to. My suit shop is in Stonebridge. I go to Stonebridge to buy a suit.
Combination of people working from home. So when I say retail, I'm adding entertainment. People want to have to spend their money to get out of the house. I want them to be entertained and eat, not necessarily buy because we're buying e-commerce.
I could see that as being an entertainment.
Yes.
This would be an entertainment. I absolutely agree.
Yes.
But I also think continue the residential, and I like actually here, I like the stack 2/2 townhome model more than anything else.
So as we go around, well, that was the comeback, was for 2 to 2. Should we label these different nodes as develop opinions of what you like this shop is in? That's the type of concept is just
That's gonna be a great conversation. Or that's great.
But at one point, quick point. What's that? No, I good idea. We were saying, oh, we can't count on the Amazon Fresh. Remember, Shoppers Food Warehouse was completely profitable. It's just that the chain got out of business. And that's why that left. And if Amazon Fresh isn't profitable. The reason I think it's not, and the reason I don't think it is, because it's free. But, you know, put a real grocery store in there. And that's what
When we have an Amazon Fresh, I think that's the city, which is more important.
yeah, because they built it, it's probably, there you go.
Yeah,
When
you would think.
Model's still being reviewed.
So I agree with the concept of an entertainment center. You know, whenever I have my grandchildren, I have to either take them to dances or Stafford if they want to roller skate or bowling to one of the alleys up in Arlington or Springfield. You know, so I totally agree. Theater, you know, entertainment, I'm with it. I agree.
Graham had.
I guess I have a different perspective. And my perspective is really framed because I really hope that Lorton doesn't miss this opportunity. And what I mean by that is we have 1 million+ passengers coming across the street as tourists. And I look at the whole of Lorton. And when I say that is, I mean, some of these people were my friends from New York and New Jersey. They have money and they don't stay here. And they don't stay here because they're looking at Shoppers Food Warehouse. They're looking at Five and Below. They're looking at a dumpy town. And that's the truth. We don't represent Fairfax County well. We don't represent the Commonwealth of Virginia. Yet we have this awesome arts center that they can spend money at. We're designing, you know, where I don't think the arts and entertainment should be here. It should be in other parts of these nodes, to be honest with you. But here, it's just across the street. So I agree with anything that supports the vision of Lorton as a whole, whether that means increased residential, whether that means looking at hotels, whether that means, but I think that looking at just one section, we have to look at it as a whole with the lens that we've got all these people coming in here. And we have not capitalized on it like Florida has. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, good point. So could we have a survey done, you know, when the train comes through, to see what type of entertainment or what they would like to see. They say stop here.
Graham has an answer.
I mean, we can certainly look at adding kind of an entertainment use and kind of exploring what that would look like on the site. I do want to bring it back to the exact point of the exercise, though. We're not setting the plan today. We're not even close. And the reason I bring that back is all we're doing tonight, and the reason that we wanted to have this follow-up meeting is just to set the maximum residential count that we can study for our impact analysis.
Because after that's in place, then we'll figure out
This has been a good conversation, but I'll say the last meeting we were talking, the group was talking about adding additional residential here. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands we're not setting out the plan tonight. Won't be setting it out until the impact analysis is complete. We have other elements that are in. But for the purposes of what we need to do today, so that Tom and his group can do their study, we have to have something at a maximum to assume, and we can work down from that, but we just can't go any higher. So if we wanted to make decisions about the exact land use mix that we think is appropriate after the impact analysis, that's the way it's supposed to go. We just need to know where to start. So I just put that out there that we're not saying it has to be, you know, commercial only or commercial plus entertainment or commercial with residential today. It's just about whether 800 units on this site is the absolute maximum that we should even evaluate.
So the 800 units is depicted, though, within that 4 to 5 to 6 level, right?
It's
Not knowing how many you're going to adjust that 800 number by lowering.
it's mainly within that, but then also thinking that there may be some fringe areas that aren't shown, that aren't colored, where there could possibly be some more townhomes or something like that, 50 more units. But the 750 was looking at the recommendation of the consultant and applying that to this site. So that's the 750 is inside the color, the different greens and blues. But then the 50 we added is just the fringe area that the consultants didn't conceptualize.
Okay, so if we go back around the room again and see, Kathy said, what we had?
It's 800 now.
800 dwelling units appropriate to have for that site.
I say,
But again, Nick, that's not what we're asking. We're asking, is 800 the maximum that we should study at all?
Right. 800 max, min,
I would say
1 point.
yes. To
1 point.
support the master plan.
When
Of keeping the.
Well, yeah, it's hard to kind of visualize, but well, I think everybody's made the point of keeping the retail component. It is 800, adding 800 dwelling units on point or plus or minus.
I would agree with the 800, contingent upon, the traffic now, because we're looking at Large Market Street now, so, we would have to, of course, there's a time theory. Yes.
Yeah,
At least 800.
gentlemen, sorry, I don't know your name.
No, Frank,
Right.
yeah, I'd say 800.
800 is definitely high. And, if you want to follow the character of all the 3 minutes that we're studying, saying pretty much big element of residential and some commercial, then 800 is what you want. But I think we all said around the table that we want this to be more of an emphasis on commercial and entertainment, stuff like that. And if you want it to be different than the rest, the residential numbers should be different a little bit. Walter?
I say 800, and once we get into the transportation pieces, we can always trim it down, but it's hard to go on. So 800.
I would go along with the 800 in terms of the commercial residential design and things. We've had enough discussions to inform that. I'm reminded of the old Monty Python line. It has a certain je ne sais quoi, but I don't know what. But I think a mix of ideas we've talked about, useful, figuring out how that 800 residential commercial unit would look. Future.
I'm okay with it as a maximum, but I think in reality, it'll end up coming down anyway, so I'm not too worried about something. I'm not happy.
You'll get a haircut.
Yeah.
And I stick with mine now.
Which
Lower than Bacon, lower than Bacon.
Right. So this is the last big one. Gunston Plaza. And you see the transect here. It is that yellow again is the it's the half mile for the residential transect, and then you get into the quarter-mile transect in the kind of orange color for residential, and then the mixed-use residential transect is in that pinkish color, and then of course Gunston Plaza. It's where you see that 17 acres up to 1,300 dwelling units, and then across the street on Armistead Road, that's another one of those areas where we're picking up some areas from the potential change in the floodplain delineation, but we've also kicked this one up from 16 dwelling units per acre up to the 25 as recommended by the consultants, 25 acres within a quarter mile. So with that, the total number, the grand total for this entire transect would be 2,840 new dwelling units. The yellow area is Woods of Fairfax. And, oh. In This area that, well, when you look at the 28.5 acres where the Woods of Fairfax is, and then there's 8 more acres of that, and then there's 6.5 acres that includes the Walgreens site. Half of that is a Walgreens site, and then the other half would be consolidated within Woods of Fairfax. So right now on the Woods of Fairfax site, I think there's 634 units, and it was only planned for like 460 units. So that site is already above. It was already built above what the current plan says it should have there. Well, it would, if you looked at that entire area, it would add, let's see, 50, 350 plus 460. That would take it up to about 800. It'd be
You almost have 1,000.
it's 634. All right.
That's
And with, just to make sure. Same thing, so the numbers, the new up to 130 and 200 and 460, those are,
no, I'm not talking about the 130 or 200 because that's probably okay. It's flip single family attached houses. Frankly, I think it should be the same as the rest of it. But the ones that I'm concerned about not having enough density to flip and redevelop are the 28.5, the 8, and 6.5. The ones to the right.
yeah, the areas.
So those are fair balance.
Sure.
So
Absolutely, but just make sure everyone knows that the up tos across all of these, those are the additional units on top of the adopted development potential under the current. So it's not the actual density, it's the net new density over top of what is.
With the comprehensive plan.
right. So then the numbers are.
So it'd be
the point.
Yeah,
You're
so it'd be the
saying
adopted.
it's
and-
plans. You said it's planned for about 400 to 600. What were those?
The Woods of Fairfax. The Woods of Fairfax. I can tell you. Let's see. So that is E12, Woods of Fairfax. There are 608 existing dwellings there, and it is planned for up to 478.
And this isn't, so this would be in addition to 478. So the almost about here, 408. Okay, I'm getting more comfortable understanding this. That gives us solid incentive.
Because we aren't taking away the old plan options either. We're just adding, for each of these sites, you're just adding a new option to go up.
Not anytime soon, but maybe if everything else got in there, when I looked at those units and whatnot, I think we calculated that the value of land per acre was $2.5 million an acre as it is now. So we'd have to be worth a whole lot more than that to be able to make it redeveloped. But that's a pretty sizable development, and it's already fairly heavily developed. Trying to make it even more developed. I mean, I'm not even sure that there's enough of other
What
reasons.
are you talking about? We're talking about 7-story buildings and everybody's saying.
I know, but
these are 3-story.
But you're putting it next to, to houses and back up to it. It's not in the center of things.
The current stuff is 3 stories. And we're talking about putting a lot higher stuff right next to single family detached house in Northern Station too. I think the bulk density here, that's completely consistent. All the other areas that we're talking about. I just want on the children's where it has the potential to.
I'm not opposed to it. I think what they have in there, and I don't know that it's gonna drive it right up hand anytime soon, but I think it's, I'm fine with what you all put together. Again.
What would it take to make it a little sweeter?
I think, I mean, what we could do is we could always bump, not up in height, because you have to start transitioning the heights on that north side. But I mean, we could find some additional numbers, especially for the stuff closest to Lorton Road. You don't really want to, as you're getting to that half mile, you're getting closer to single family homes. So that's where you really have to start thinking about transitioning. And one way to make that transition is to make the homes more compatible with what they're beside, but also you're probably going to want to have some open space transition in there too. So they're currently garden style apartments.
Johnston Plaza is at a certain height, density, and amenities and entertainment for hearing. That's going to tell you will want to be across the street, walkable to that area.
That's right.
So until we nail that down, we really.
Well, it is nailed in. I'll talk about that right now. And all I'm saying is make that stuff a little closer to the Plaza to incentivize it to redevelop also.
And I hear what Stephen was saying when he says stepping stone. Yes. So I think maybe that visual, not a visual learner, that visualization would help me, because you're right. And I apologize for not being farther ahead on the read on what Johnston Plaza will look like, to know how that step down with the two gold and the pink be at a lower level and the yellow at a higher level, or opposite.
I can see along Lorton Road, right along that north side of Lorton Road, you could probably match. You could possibly go up to 5 or 6 at its highest, but then you're also going to want to start stepping down to that 4 range. Yeah, and as you get behind it, that's where you're kind of stepping down and getting closer and closer. Like larger buildings look smaller the farther they are away. So the closer the buildings are, you want them to kind of match more of what you have.
Right next to single family homes, quarter acre, third of an acre lots, and then you're transitioning into the next level of 2 to 3 floor bedroom or 4 apartments, and then high rise.
Yep.
And frankly, the topography on that, that doesn't limit it. It's conducive to exactly what you're talking about, because it's biased where it's close to the single family. There's their townhouses, like the single family dwellings, and that's up on the top of the hill. So as you come down, you can get taller.
Yeah.
And it's not like from the perspective of the residential, things around it, it will not look that tall as they look down.
And the thing you want to think about too, though, is just how we're looking at all these, looking at them as a transect. You want to think about the numbers as they're being spread, but also think about that big number, because if we're right now looking at about 800 in that Woods of Fairfax place. I mean, that was a Fairfax site, but then we're looking at 13. So if you bring up the Woods of Fairfax, do you want to bring Gunston Plaza down, or do you want to keep Gunston Plaza in that 1300 range, but then raise that up? And it's almost like the secondary areas or the supporting areas in the transect would be competing directly with the center of the transect. So that's just some of the things you have to think about when you're thinking about how the numbers spread. So
should we go around and get both sites against the plaza and think that whole northern part of Lorton Road is number one piece.
Yeah, just look at it all as one transect and kind of give us your thoughts.
Captain, come to you first. Rapid fire here on the clock.
Yeah, we're on the clock.
But they have two separate sections. Everything that's north of Lorton Road is one transect. Gunstead Plaza is the second transect. Are the numbers, and I can have them in my head, 2, 4, 7, 8, 12, 1,300 units north of Lorton Road, about right? And it's 1,300 south of Lorton Road, about right?
I support the plan and vision and even increasing density. That's awesome.
Beyond those current numbers there. Okay. Wendy? On point.
Support even more density in the Gunstead Plaza.
Right.
Same house, we're after more density.
One with
I've already expressed myself. That's what I already said.
Walter.
I support with an increase in density.
MS.
I will go along.
I support the approach that you have already outlined.
I support with possibility for increase.
Okay. Right. And when you look at that too, just think about it as not as color blobs, but the fact that there had to be internal roads and everything like that.
We also including the up areas that tested along for the station are further, probably actually from the Lorton Station transect.
Well, that probably gets you another 150-ish. Yeah, I mean, above those density. Yeah, I think everybody was in consensus that that smaller portion between the church and the yellow there would be included.
Okay.
Okay, I know we're on the clock here.
Yeah. So I think we've heard what we need to hear, and we thank you all for your time. We're going to do some minor work on the numbers, just listen to what you all have talked about. We're going to look at a couple more examples. I'm interested in looking just to see what the density is when you look at Fairfax Corner and just see how that came out. We still may want to go above that because it's not a brand new model, but we're going to look at the numbers and we're going to finalize everything. And then we're going to hand it over to Tom and his team and send what we need to send back to parks and the schools and everything since the numbers have increased. And the next time we come back with you, we're going to have the true picture on what the impacts of this development will be and where we have seen that we may need to knock some things off as we start dropping writing what the comprehensive plan says.
You guys all got very quiet. Oh, Stephen muted us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was getting feedback from my own voice. The big part is going to be making sure that transportation has enough time not only to look at the impacts, but also come up with some mitigation that is most realistic, or else hit us over the head with a book and say, this doesn't work, so.
Know what it was when we talked original Malvern in high school a million years ago. But I'm not sure what this defines means.
We'll definitely we'll send you that and come up with some more examples of how they might look too. So.
When we worked on the old ExxonMobil campus, Gallows, and one that's in the picture is actually San Francisco, Mission Bay. So that's an innovation campus that's right next to the Caltrain, south of like downtown and everything.
And that one's been wildly successful. And you're able to get out that way, it's not checking out. It's really Warriors play.
So I just want to be direct, approximately how much time are we talking? I mean, Tom, what's the process that you all,
How long were you gonna take to tweak the numbers?
I will try to commit to having all of our research done and the numbers refined and put in that form that you need, you know, with the it's quantified in the format that you need by the end of next week. By the end of the week after next. No, I'm just joking.
As a staff, so I could probably need a couple months. It's gonna be a difficult area to mitigate. Pretty sure that we were seeing pretty bad results just based on the current plan. So adding all these additional units, square footages, would be challenging. So like I said earlier, we're gonna need some time to figure out how to make traffic flow.
November-ish.
Yeah, probably.
okay, so we're looking approximately, no, before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Mm.
I was hoping-
Okay, and the reason I ask is because I understand a lot of you all have been working this for years, and I don't want to be a part of it. I want to see this happen as much as possible, you know, as much as it is in our control. So I don't want us to drag our feet. Let's get it and have some products out so that we can review and get a champion, whoever that champion is, in a position of authority to stamp it and let's go. Let's make it happen.
And,
You know, after the pit, you can get gift cards.
I probably will my time.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.